Machiavelli discovered how to become untouchable by studying one prince who lost everything in 10 seconds and another who ruled through pure psychological presence. In 1503, Duke Valentino revealed vulnerability for just 10 seconds to the wrong advisor. That advisor used those 10 seconds to destroy the Duke completely. But Cesare Borgia never showed weakness to anyone and became feared across all of Italy without fighting a single battle. Today, I'll show you Machiavelli's exact method for becoming psychologically untouchable. The same strategy that made Borgia invincible and can make you unbreakable. Because what Machiavelli understood 500 years ago, modern neuroscience now proves you don't become untouchable by being stronger. You become untouchable by controlling what others see. The story that changed Machiavelli's understanding of power forever began with Prince Francesco Sforza, who controlled half of northern Italy through sheer strategic brilliance. But Machiavelli watched him lose it all in a single conversation. Prince Sforza had just suffered a personal loss. His young son had died in an accident. During a crucial negotiation with Venetian ambassadors, grief overcame him. He broke down, admitted his pain, and asked for their understanding. The ambassadors consoled him. They offered sympathy. They embraced him as a grieving father. 3 weeks later, they invaded his territory. Machiavelli realized something terrifying. They didn't attack Sforza because he was vulnerable. They attacked him because he had shown vulnerability. The moment he revealed his human side, he stopped being seen as a strategic threat and started being seen as an opportunity. This wasn't cruelty. It was calculation. The ambassadors had families too. They understood grief, but they also understood that a grieving leader makes emotional decisions, hesitates during critical moments, and can be manipulated through sympathy. Machiavelli wrote, "The moment you show your wounds to wolves, you teach them where to bite." But that's not the most devastating part. The most devastating part is what modern psychology has revealed about why showing vulnerability triggers exploitation. Dr. Robert Sapolsky's research at Stanford proves that humans are neurologically wired to detect and exploit perceived weakness in others. When someone reveals emotional pain, insecurity, or desperation, it activates the amygdala in observers, the same brain region that identifies prey animals in predators. This isn't conscious malice, it's evolutionary programming. Dr. Amy Cuddy's research at Harvard shows that people unconsciously categorize others within seconds as either competent or incompetent, strong or weak. Once you're placed in the weak category, every interaction becomes a power calculation. Machiavelli observed this without understanding the neuroscience, but his conclusion was identical. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the ear, hand, for everyone can see and few can feel. Think about the last time you shared a personal struggle with someone you trusted. How did they treat you afterward? Did they offer genuine support? Or did you notice a subtle shift in how they spoke to you, looked at you, or included you in decisions? This is what Machiavelli called the vulnerability trap. The moment you reveal weakness, seeking understanding, you often receive sympathy combined with unconscious disrespect. Here's the brutal truth. People don't necessarily want to hurt you, but they can't help responding to the social cues you're broadcasting. When you appear uncertain, they feel more certain. When you seem desperate for approval, they feel more powerful by withholding it. But Machiavelli discovered something that changes everything. Because vulnerability triggers predatory instincts, therefore Machiavelli developed what he called strategic mystery, the art of being present without being readable. He studied Cesare Borgia, who became one of the most feared leaders in Renaissance Italy, not through brutality, but through absolute unpredictability. No one could figure out what Borgia was thinking, planning, or feeling. When Borgia faced criticism, he didn't defend himself. He simply stared until the critic became uncomfortable and changed the subject. When allies tried to probe his emotions, he gave responses so neutral that they couldn't tell if he was pleased, angry, or indifferent. Dr. Susan Fisk's research on social cognition shows why this works. Humans feel compelled to complete the picture when information is missing. When someone is unreadable, our brains automatically assume they know something we don't, which creates what psychologists call unconscious deference. Machiavelli observed that Borgia's enemies spent more time trying to figure him out than trying to defeat him. They became so focused on reading his intentions that they neglected their own strategies. This is the power of strategic mystery. When people can't predict you, they can't manipulate you. When they can't read your emotions, they can't use them against you. When they don't know your limits, they hesitate to test them. But strategic mystery isn't about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming intentional about when and how you reveal information about yourself. The framework Machiavelli developed has 5 components. Machiavelli's framework for becoming untouchable consists of 5 strategic principles that transform how others perceive and interact with you. Principle 1: controlled visibility. Never let anyone see your complete emotional state. Borgia would show glimpses of anger, satisfaction, or concern, but never the full picture. People got enough information to know he was engaged, but never enough to predict his next move. Modern application: share outcomes, not processes. Let people know you're working on something important, but don't explain your methodology, timeline, or concerns. Give updates, not insights. Principle 2: strategic silence. When accused, questioned, or provoked, respond with calculated pauses instead of immediate reactions. Machiavelli noted that powerful people make others wait for their words, and their words carry more weight because of that weight. This isn't about being rude. It's about breaking the assumption that you owe immediate responses to everyone's curiosity or challenges. Principle 3: emotional firewalls. Create clear boundaries between your inner experience and your public presence. Machiavelli advised, be like a fortress. Let people see the walls, but never the layout inside. Feel whatever you need to feel privately, but externally maintain a consistent energy that others can't manipulate or exploit. Principle 4: information asymmetry. Always know more about others than they know about you. Machiavelli spent hours studying the habits, fears, and motivations of everyone in his circle, while revealing nothing about his own. Listen more than you speak. Ask questions that reveal others' thinking, while deflecting questions about your own plans or feelings. Principle 5: presence without pressure. Command attention through calmness, not intensity. Machiavelli noted that truly powerful people don't need to prove their power. They simply embody it through unshakable composure. But implementing these principles requires understanding the deeper psychology. Because most people reveal too much seeking connection, therefore they become vulnerable to those who reveal nothing while gathering intelligence. Dr. Daniel Kahneman's research on cognitive biases shows that humans consistently overestimate the importance of information that's easily available and underestimate the significance of hidden information. When you're an open book, people stop wondering about you. They think they know your limits, your triggers, your motivations. This predictability makes you easy to manipulate, sideline, or underestimate. But when you're strategically mysterious, people's brains fill in the gaps with assumptions that usually work in your favor. They assume you're more competent, more connected, more dangerous than you might actually be. Machiavelli observed this with Lorenzo de' Medici, who ruled Florence through perception management rather than force. Lorenzo rarely spoke in council meetings, but when he did, everyone listened intently because his words were rare and therefore seemed more valuable. Here's the psychological mechanism. Scarcity creates value. When your thoughts, emotions, and reactions are scarce commodities, people assign them higher importance. This doesn't mean becoming antisocial or cold. It means becoming intentional about what you reveal, when you reveal it, and to whom. The most untouchable people Machiavelli studied shared three characteristics. Characteristic 1. They never explained themselves to people who hadn't earned explanations. They understood that over-explanation signals insecurity and gives others ammunition for future manipulation. Characteristic 2. They maintained the same energy regardless of external circumstances. Whether facing criticism, praise, crisis, or success, their external demeanor remained consistent. This consistency became their signature and their shield. Characteristic 3. They made others feel slightly off balance, not through hostility, but through unpredictability. People never knew exactly where they stood, which kept everyone more respectful and cautious. But there's a darker side to this strategy. Because becoming untouchable requires understanding predatory behavior, therefore Machiavelli developed a system for identifying who in your circle poses the greatest threat to your psychological safety. He categorized people into 5 types based on how they respond to strength versus vulnerability. Type 1. The emotional vampire. These people drain your energy by constantly seeking sympathy, validation, or emotional support while offering nothing substantive in return. They test your boundaries by overwhelming you with their problems. Machiavelli's test: share a minor success with them. If they immediately redirect the conversation to their own struggles or find ways to diminish your achievement, they're an emotional vampire. Type 2. The information harvester. These people ask probing questions about your personal life, plans, or feelings, while sharing nothing meaningful about themselves. They're building a psychological profile to use later. Machiavelli's test: ask them equally personal questions. If they deflect while continuing to probe you, they're harvesting information for strategic purposes. Type 3. The weakness exploiter. These people seem supportive when you're strong, but become subtly hostile or competitive when you show any vulnerability. They unconsciously prey on perceived weakness. Machiavelli's test: mention a small concern or challenge. If they offer advice that makes you feel worse about yourself or suggest you're not capable of handling it, they exploit weakness. Type 4. The status challenger. These people constantly test your boundaries, question your decisions, or undermine your authority in subtle ways. They're unconsciously competing for social dominance. Machiavelli's test: make a firm decision about something that affects both of you. If they immediately challenge it or try to negotiate it rather than accept your leadership, they're status challengers. Type 5. The loyalty tester. These people create artificial conflicts or dilemmas to test where your loyalties lie. They want to know if they can control you through guilt, obligation, or fear of disappointing them. Machiavelli's test: notice if they frequently put you in positions where you must choose between them and other people or priorities. This is strategic manipulation. Once you identify these types in your circle, Machiavelli's response strategy becomes crucial. Because different predator types require different responses, therefore Machiavelli developed specific protocols for maintaining your untouchable status with each type. Protocol 1. Energy preservation for emotional vampires. Never try to fix their problems or provide the emotional support they're seeking. Instead, redirect conversations toward solutions they must implement themselves. Example response: that sounds challenging. What's your plan for handling it? Then change the subject regardless of their answer. Protocol 2. Information control for information harvesters. Answer their questions with questions. Give vague responses to personal inquiries while gathering intelligence about their motivations. Example response: why do you ask? Or, what makes you curious about that? This reverses the dynamic and puts them on the defensive. Protocol 3. Strength projection for weakness exploiters. Never reveal uncertainty, fear, or need for their approval. When they offer helpful advice that feels undermining, thank them and do the opposite. Example response: I appreciate your perspective. I'll handle it my way. Then demonstrate competence through action, not explanation. Protocol 4. Boundary enforcement for status challenges. Don't engage in arguments or justifications. Simply restate your position once and then act according to your decision, regardless of their objections. Example response: I've made my decision. Let's move forward. Then proceed as planned without further discussion. Protocol 5. Independence demonstration for loyalty testers. Refuse to participate in artificial conflicts. Make decisions based on your own judgment rather than their emotional manipulation. Example response: I don't see this as a choice between you and other person priority. I'm going to do what makes sense. Then act independently. But the most sophisticated aspect of Machiavelli's system involves advanced perception management. Because basic untouchability protects you from predators, therefore advanced perception management allows you to influence outcomes without visible effort. Machiavelli studied how Caterina Sforza, one of the most powerful women in Renaissance Italy, controlled entire political situations through what he called strategic presence, the ability to influence people's decisions simply by being in the room. Dr. Albert Mehrabian's research on communication shows that 55% of influence comes from body language, 38% from tone of voice, and only 7% from actual words. Caterina mastered the 93% that had nothing to do with what she said. The Sforza method. Phase 1. Environmental calibration. Enter any space and immediately assess the emotional temperature. Who's nervous? Who's confident? Who's seeking validation? This information becomes your strategic map. Phase 2. Energy anchoring. Maintain consistent, calm energy regardless of the chaos around you. Your stability becomes a reference point that others unconsciously defer to. Phase 3. Selective engagement. Respond only to communication that serves your interests. Ignore provocations, deflect irrelevant questions, and focus attention on what matters to your goals. Phase 4. Influence without effort. Make suggestions through questions rather than statements. What if we considered, or how would it work if? This plants ideas without triggering resistance. Machiavelli observed that Caterina could walk into a room of arguing men and, without raising her voice or making demands, shift the entire conversation simply through her composed presence and strategic questions. Modern neuroscience explains this through mirror neurons. People unconsciously match the energy of the most grounded person in their environment. When you're unshakable, others become more stable. When you're strategic, others become more thoughtful. But there's one final element that separates the truly untouchable from those who are merely protected. Because perception management protects your position, therefore the ultimate goal is to transform how people fundamentally categorize you in their minds. Machiavelli identified 3 levels of social categorization that determine how people treat you. Level 1. The manageable people see you as someone they can influence, control, or predict. You're helpful, available, and responsive to their needs and emotions. Level 2. The formidable people see you as competent and strong, but still human and approachable. They respect you, but feel comfortable challenging or negotiating with you. Level 3. The untouchable people see you as operating on a different level entirely. They feel slight uncertainty around you, speak more carefully, and rarely attempt to manipulate or test you. The transformation from level 1 to level 3 requires what Machiavelli called strategic evolution, a systematic change in how you present yourself over time. Month 1 to 2. Silence revolution. Drastically reduce how much you explain yourself. Stop justifying decisions, defending choices, or seeking approval. This breaks people's expectation that they can debate your judgment. Month 3 to 4. Emotional firewalls. Stop sharing personal struggles, fears, or uncertainties with anyone who hasn't proven they can handle that information responsibly. Watch how this changes their behavior toward you. Month 5 to 6. Presence mastery. Focus entirely on your energy and body language. Slow down your movements, lower your voice, increase your pause time between thoughts. Notice how others start mirroring your rhythm. Month 7 to 8. Information asymmetry. Become fascinated with understanding others while revealing nothing unnecessary about yourself. Ask better questions, remember details, but share only strategic information. Month 9 to 12. Integration. These behaviors become natural rather than conscious. You've transformed from someone people try to manage into someone they instinctively respect and slightly fear disappointing. But the most important aspect of this transformation is understanding what you're really building. Because most people confuse being untouchable with being unlikable. Therefore, it's crucial to understand that Machiavelli's goal was respect, not fear. Fear creates enemies who plot your downfall. Respect creates allies who protect your interests even when you're not present. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But it is best to be respected, which requires neither love nor fear, but admiration for your competence and strength." Dr. Amy Edmondson's research on psychological safety shows that teams perform best when they respect their leaders' competence while feeling safe to communicate openly. This requires what Machiavelli called warm authority, being approachable but not available for manipulation. The warm authority formula: competence signals. Always deliver on commitments. Admit when you don't know something. Ask intelligent questions and solve problems efficiently. Boundary clarity. Be consistently kind, but never let kindness override your standards or decisions. Selective vulnerability. Share struggles only after you've solved them, which demonstrates resilience rather than weakness. Predictable standards. People should know exactly what you expect and what consequences follow when those expectations aren't met. The most respected leaders Machiavelli studied were those people wanted to please, not because they were demanding, but because disappointing them felt like a personal failure. This is the difference between fear-based compliance and respect-based loyalty. Fear creates resentment. Respect creates genuine desire to meet your standards. When you're truly untouchable, people don't avoid you. They elevate their behavior around you. They speak more thoughtfully, act more professionally, and treat you with a deference that feels natural rather than forced. But there's one final test of whether you've truly mastered Machiavelli's principles. The ultimate test of untouchability isn't how people treat you when you're strong. It's how they respond when you face genuine adversity. Machiavelli faced this test himself when the Medici family was overthrown and he lost his position, his wealth, and his political influence overnight. He watched carefully to see who would still associate with him and how they would treat him in his diminished state. What he discovered became his final lesson about human nature. People who had genuinely respected his character rather than his position continued treating him with dignity. Those who had only responded to his political power immediately began treating him as irrelevant. This taught him that true untouchability isn't about external circumstances. It's about internal unshakability that transcends your situation. The 3 pillars of internal untouchability. Pillar 1. Identity independence. Your sense of self doesn't fluctuate based on others' opinions, your current circumstances, or external validation. You know who you are regardless of what's happening around you. Pillar 2. Outcome detachment. You work toward goals without being emotionally dependent on specific results. This detachment paradoxically makes you more effective because you can adapt strategies without ego interference. Pillar 3, strategic patience. You think in years rather than months, understanding that building genuine untouchability is a long-term process that compounds over time. When these 3 pillars are solid, you become truly untouchable because your strength doesn't depend on external circumstances. People sense this unshakability and respond with unconscious respect, even when you're facing challenges. Remember Duke Valentino, who lost everything by showing vulnerability for just 10 seconds? Machiavelli later wrote that this single moment taught him more about power than all his years of studying political theory. The Duke's mistake wasn't being human. It was forgetting that in a world of strategic players, every emotion you reveal becomes information others can use to predict and control your behavior. But Machiavelli's system isn't about becoming emotionless or isolated. It's about becoming intentional. Feel everything, but choose carefully what you reveal and to whom. Be human, but be strategic about when you let others see your humanity. The untouchable person isn't someone without weakness. They're someone whose weaknesses are invisible to their enemies and known only to their closest allies who have earned that trust through consistent loyalty. 500 years after Machiavelli wrote these principles, neuroscience has proven what he observed through pure experience. People respond to perception more than reality, mystery more than transparency, and strength more than vulnerability. Your enemies are counting on you to remain predictable, emotional, and available for manipulation. They want you to continue explaining yourself, seeking approval, and showing your wounds to people who haven't earned the right to heal them. Disappoint them, become unreadable, move with purpose, speak with intention. Let your presence communicate what your words never need to explain. The most dangerous person in any room isn't the loudest or the most aggressive. It's the one who watches quietly, thinks strategically, and moves only when they've calculated the optimal outcome. That's not manipulation. That's mastery. That's not coldness. That's consciousness. That's not isolation. That's evolution. In a world that rewards the strategic over the emotional, the composed over the reactive, and the mysterious over the transparent, you now have the choice: remain touchable and hope for the best, or become untouchable and control your own destiny. Machiavelli's final words on the subject were, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are, and those few will not dare to oppose themselves to the opinion of the many." Craft what they see. Protect what you are. Let the distance between the two become your greatest strategic advantage. You are no longer someone who explains, justifies, or seeks permission. You are someone who decides, acts, and lets results speak for themselves. You are no longer available for everyone's opinion, approval, or emotional manipulation. You are a strategic force that others must adapt to, rather than something they can reshape to fit their needs. You are untouchable, not because you're invulnerable, but because you've mastered the art of being present without being readable, strong without being brittle, and influential without being obvious. The game hasn't changed, but now you know the rules. And in Machiavelli's world, knowing the rules isn't enough. You must master them so completely that others don't even realize you're playing. If this message resonates with something you've experienced, being taken advantage of because you were too open, underestimated because you were too available, or manipulated because you were too trusting, you're not weak for recognizing these patterns. You're strategic. Share in the comments which Machiavellian principle hit closest to home. Sometimes naming what we've been through is the first step toward never experiencing it again. If you're ready to explore more strategic insights about power dynamics and psychological protection, check out my video on Never Defend Yourself, Machiavelli's law that destroys your enemies, where I reveal why the moment you defend yourself, you've already lost the power game, and the exact protocol for turning every attack into your advantage. Thank you for watching. See you in the next dimension.